Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's episode of Unlimited, where we bring you some of the most incredible thinkers, thought leaders, researchers, and producers. And tonight today, this afternoon, I should say, whichever time you're watching it and whatever time zone you are in, we are very excited to present to you Michelle Freed. Now, Michelle Freed has been working with LightNet and Starseed Academy for over a year, working to book our publicity and media. She has a company called Leave It to Me or Leave It to Michelle Media or Live in the Moment, right? And she also works doing that for many other producers, including Fade to Black, Jimmy Church. But beyond that, and the reason why we love working with her is she is the real deal. She is immersed in the fascination that we all share here today, which is how are we understanding these paranormal abilities that we have, and how are we out in the world seeing Bigfoot, having alien encounters? What does hypnosis mean? She's going to be talking about her controlled remote viewing, which she also gives classes in. So we're going to hear about that. She's going to talk about producing for Art Bell. She's going to talk about the Knights of the Templar, which I'm interested in hearing about. And she's going to talk about why you should even care about remote viewing. Can you do it for stocks? Can you do it for your real life? Why does it matter? And she's also going to talk about contact experiences, hypnosis, and so much more. Michelle, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with here. I've been looking forward to this all month.
Oh my gosh. I'm thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here too. Um, I don't know how are we going to fit all that in.
I know, but curious minds want to know, so we'll work our way through things. Well, one of the questions we have for you is, what was it like producing the Art Bell show? And tell us a little bit more about that.
So it was I learned a lot, especially in this business. I feel like, we had a show 5 nights a week. So I was booking what 5 times 20 guests a month. So I feel at this point I should have my PhD in all things weird, because I would do pre-interviews with them and get to ask my personal questions. And that was a huge, amazing experience for me. But what's really cool is how I got the job, which is I was I went through a divorce, and I had to kind of figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And I had a lot of friends that were in the remote viewing world. So I took it upon myself to help get them booked on shows. And so I reached out to Art Bell's show, Midnight in the Desert, and I just, wrote a pitch and just hope for the best. And I think in the subject line I wrote, go big or go home. That's what I put in the subject. So I had a producer call me right back, and he asked me a lot of questions. I think we were on the phone for like an hour, and he's like, okay, we'll get back to you. So weeks went by, days and weeks and months. And then finally I got a call from a woman, and she's like, I'm so sorry. I love your person that you're pitching. We lost our producer. And I was just like, huh. And, just, I don't know what came over me. I just kind of went with it. And all I could cough up are 2 words: hire me. And yeah, and the rest is history. So I just asked for the job,
Wow.
and I got the job. She was flabbergasted. She was just like, okay, let's see what you could do. So she tested me out, and I booked like 2 weeks of guests in 3 days. And so Art called her up and said, yeah, you keep this one. You pay her what she wants, you keep her, whatever, which was really cool. And then even cooler was she told me later that she was interviewing people for the position. And earlier that same day, she was interviewing a lady and she kept calling her Michelle, and her name wasn't Michelle.
Whoa.
How do you explain that? Weird.
Whoa.
That's really weird. She was probably, precogging me coming in, in a few hours or something. So, yeah, it was a cool thing that happened.
That is so cool, Michelle. And I feel like, what would we do without you? I mean, you have so many contacts in this curiosity world that we're all in listening today is the deepest mysteries of the universe. And so it's really cool to see you melding, and that's, my dad said today on the phone, I was talking to him because, we're really pushing purpose this year because we're launching the Purpose Lab and we're saying like, what lights you up, get in there. And I've had similar experiences like you. Like I started working for Thrive as a solutions architect, a systems architect, because that's what I wanted to do. And I was like, there's not a way in hell I'm going to get this job. But I was like, I want this job. And I got it. I mean, it was crazy. Right. And so sometimes your desire and your match for that, like you are the perfect person for that job. And you are helping so many people. And again, what's so cool is sometimes your job isn't like you're a perfect person that's saying, okay, I book all these shows for all these people in this industry. So you've got all of this like connections, but then you're also saying, and I teach remote viewing and I have the butterfly effect center, so it's cool that you've made all that work for yourself in such a cool way. But anyway, I just want to compliment you on hitting a note for yourself and for the world where you're incredibly powerful as a.
I think it's something I was doing my whole life, but never knew I was doing it. A lot of people will ask me this question, like, did you have, paranormal activity or did you see a UFO in your past? And I'm like, no, I was pretty normal. I mean, not that they're abnormal, but I didn't have any. But what I did have and what I found out later is my secret power. One of them is really manifesting, because I really believe that when you put something out there that into the universe and you do it the right way, and it comes back to you. And my kids, they make fun, they call me a fairy, and that I have magic powers. So I'll tell you a really quick, is it okay if I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
So I have a son that's like, he's a vendor at, baseball games and stuff like that. He's a huge sports fan. And so we were living in California and we went to an Angels game, and I just was going for support, and the whole family was there, but I was really on my phone the whole time. I was, trying to get some sun and just chill. And I was looking on my phone, and all of a sudden, when you're half paying attention, I could tell the crowd sounds changed a little bit. But I was still looking. And then next thing I know, the game ball was literally in my lap. I'm not joking. So what happened was I was sitting there and everybody around me started standing up. People had mitts and they were trying to catch a foul ball or something. And I was just sitting there going, oh, what's happening? The ball like bounced off somebody and just rolled into my lap, and I'm like, this ball meant to come to me. And I was going to give the ball to the person because you could tell they were pissed off. But I was like, no, this ball was meant to be with me. I couldn't give it to them. And it was such a huge metaphor for my life. To me, it's about manifestation. It's about attracting things, and yeah, it's a ball. Like, what am I going to do with a baseball? But what I did do is I tell this story all the time. And so that's what came of it. Now it's a really cool, fun story to tell. So
I love that, Michelle. And I think, when both of these stories you've told, you've had a level of certainty. Hire me.
yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
highlight that because you guys, when you're thinking, when you're like, oh, could I really do this? Like, is this my ball? Like that certainty allays the unprobability, like the probability scale of the universe to be like, you know what? She's wants this and she's ready. But anyway, Adam has a question about hypnosis because he's a hypnotist as well.
Yeah, you have such a fascinating career. I'm sure we could do an entire episode just on that. But I found reading through your bio, you're really multifaceted, and I wanted to get a little deeper into some of those things. So
Okay.
could you talk with us about how hypnosis is utilized in the different things that you're doing?
So when I decided to go down this kind of path, um, I was taking a psychic development class, and I wasn't really I was with my best friend, who she wrote 3 books on psychic development, and so she was teaching the class, which I kind of learned that maybe I am psychic, maybe everyone's psychic. It kind of opened up my mind. And I live in Chicago, and I was thinking, what can I do? Again, I love purpose. What can I do to help people? Like I want to have a purpose in my life. And but in Chicago, like we don't have a lot of people here where I can make a living on psychic stuff, and a lot of it is semantics, but I just kind of knew that I'm not going to be able to like, have a crystal ball in Chicago, maybe California, I don't know, but not Chicago. So I started researching and I found hypnosis, and it felt right to me. And so over the years, I've been fascinated and always leaned towards the science of things. And so I actually started a practice, started working with people. And as you know, that hypnosis can go way faster than just regular counseling and therapy because we get right to the origin. We smash it, it's gone, so it happens a lot faster. But the problem and the frustration for me is that the people that I was seeing weren't ready for it. And I'm not going to force anybody to do it. So I kind of backed away from it, because because I knew one lady came in because she was biting her nails and she wanted to stop. And as we got to the second appointment, and I learned she needs a regression because this has to do with something in her childhood. And, so I kind of said, the next time you come, we're going to regress you, and she went, oh, you know what? I will have to let you know my calendar's at home. I will give you a call. Yeah. Crickets, never heard that call. And that kept happening because it was happening so fast. People were emoting by the second session and sometimes the first session. So I took my knowledge that I learned about hypnosis, and started really focus on what's going on in our minds, like the conscious, the unconscious. And what I do is I split that into 3 pieces. So it's your conscious, your subconscious, and then your unconscious, which is really interesting. I teach it in my class, like how I came up with this kind of philosophy and how this all works. And then it kind of migrated into remote viewing. And a lot of the experiments that we've done in remote viewing are all based around a lot of the things that I've learned, and kind of moving remote viewing into the future by engaging in our senses and based on what's happening in our mind. So yeah.
That is so fascinating. And yeah, it can, it's interesting because your soul kind of knows sometimes, like you said, just like the woman started calling you Michelle before she even hired you. And then these people are like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do hypnosis, because the part of them that wants that story to go on or doesn't know what another story might even look like, they're running back out the back door. We're going to get into remote viewing, but I wanted to ask you, have you ever done, hypnosis for people who've had ET contact experiences? And also, like, how does that have to do with past life regression? Is that what you mostly do in hypnosis? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So yes, I have a really cool story about something that happened. So let me just clarify that regression, there's a couple kinds of regression, or there's a past life regression where the intention is about going to a past life for a purpose, and then bringing, well, I'll talk about that later, but for a purpose, like maybe because someone has a fear of heights, and then maybe that the origin of that started in a past life. So we're going to go hunt for that first time that happened. And then there's a kind of regression where we regress somebody to a particular event. And this one year, this crazy year, I think it was 2018. Not that that matters, but I had 3 clients and none of them knew each other. And they were in all different parts of the United States. Well, one was in Canada, one in Chicago, and one in California. And throughout the year, like, I don't know how many months apart, like staggered months apart, they reached out to me. And they said, "Oh, do you regress people? Because I think I was abducted." And I'm like, "Yeah." So I did the first person first, and we regressed them, and they started to describe a scenario where they felt that they were abducted they were off planet, they were in the water, breathing water, and they were trying to describe the colors that they were observing. There were no colors here on Earth like that, and they had no way or no vocabulary to describe these colors and creatures and things like that. Well, then, I don't know, a few months later after that, I had another person come and said, "Oh, do you regress?" And and we did. And same story. They were in it off planet. They were breathing water. Same, a couple details were a little different. And then the third person also came to me with a similar story. I was like, I never even heard of, people just working to try to get guests on the show. Nobody has ever talked about being abducted to another planet and breathing water, and who knows, so that was fascinating to me. It was just incredible. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
one guy said to me that these people had an alien experience, an encounter, but they were not able to tell anyone in their life about it because they felt, oh, there's some stigma about it. And this person worked, with 2 people in the same office that both had experiences, but they didn't even know that each other had an experience. And I mean, that's kind of how it is. Like, I just read a statistic that over 90% of people have had ET contact, direct ET contact. Whether they remember it or not is another thing. But how funny, because these days you can say, I've seen a UFO, I've had ET contact, and chances are it's not a stigma. And chances are the other person's gonna be like, oh, me too. The
And
people that I least think have had experiences are like, oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think that these people fighting for disclosure are really opening up the door, because when I worked with Art Bell, he was talking, I would get people all the time that would call me and they just wanted to tell me their story. And then I'd say, "You should come on the show and talk about it." They're like, "No way, I would never. People are going to think I'm crazy." And they think they're crazy. So it's kind of, people think they're crazy, and it's that was concerning for me. You know, there's a lot of mental illness in the world, and, you know, so we don't need a help. You know, we all have anxiety, depression, all that stuff going on right now. So we don't need any ET contact to kind of mess us up even more. But yeah, but now I feel like people are more willing to talk about this, and I think it's really healthy. You know, some cases, they are dreams. We find out that, you know, someone had a lucid dream and that's what their situation was. And some you just can't, you can't debunk it. You know, it's like something happened, and, you know, you really can't question it too much.
Yeah, speaking of you know, going crazy or thinking you're crazy, I mean, it's actually not a use to say, like, instead of saying that, say like you're extraordinary. And I want to do a shameless plug right now, because on Monday, tomorrow, we are going to be launching the podcast interview for Awaken Your Purpose podcast with Bruce Lipton. And this guy in the interview, he's like, look, I knew that the science about genetics was wrong. I knew they were missing something, and I was sure of it. But all of my peers, everyone like told me I was crazy. And he's like, I started to believe that I was crazy. He's
Right.
like, I was wondering myself, like, should I be concerned about my sanity? And then he was like, but I asked them questions that they couldn't, like, it was like their logic was wrong. And he's like 23 years later, these guys, you know, he is the father of epigenetics. So this idea
Yeah.
that our DNA is not this like fixed thing. So I just encourage everyone to go check that out. If you're on Apple Podcast, just go to Awaken Your Purpose podcast. I've also shared the link if you're watching this, holomovement.net/Awaken Your Purpose podcast. So this is where you can go. You can also go to any of the YouTubes, Alan's YouTube, New Realities, Unify, Humanities Team, LightNet. Every Monday and every Friday, we are dropping these incredible stories that are super inspiring. So we encourage everyone to check those out. And Adam had a question for you next.
Well, yeah, I did. I wanted to comment on some of the stuff you were talking about. UFOs is one, and how that's kind of, because there's no longer such a stigma, it's sort of like the sixth sense. And if you had talked about the sixth sense 25 years ago, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, that's woo-woo. And consensus reality, it's accepted both of those things, but it's also now lumped in a whole lot of stuff into a singular thing. So UFO can mean a lot of different things, just like a sixth sense can. And I'm kind of putting this out there just so we can open our minds that remote viewing, telekinesis, telepathic, precognition, we have a lot more than six. And we can open ourselves up to really expressing those as individual skills and realizing that our sensory perception is quite broad.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
our experience with UFOs is quite broad.
Yeah, exactly. I just had a conversation with somebody last night, and we were talking about how all these things are pretty much the same thing, what we're talking about. And it's really about intention, you know, so, and intention and vibration. So if you want to use hypnosis for, you know, finding out about UFOs, and you want to use remote viewing or a psychic or anything like that, it's all wrapped around your intention of what you're going to use it for. But ultimately, we're tapping into the same thing. We're tapping into our subconscious. And that's really the bottom line of it all. And I feel like a lot of these things, especially remote viewing, because I can speak for myself, has given me a lot of confidence to trust my own intuition. And so, like what you were saying is, you know, with Dr. Bruce Lipton, what he did was you trust, you can easily get wrapped up in what other people think, but we have to retrain ourselves to trust our instincts. And, and even starting with children, when my kids were little and they had the stranger danger talk, I told them to trust their instincts. Somehow I wasn't into any of this, but I just told them, because they were kind of freaking out about it. I said, just trust yourself. Your body will let you know if that's someone you should, stay away from. Just trust your instincts. So we really need to start teaching our kids to trust, because that's where the truth is. And we need to reprogram ourselves, because every time, I don't know any example of what people say, people that have told me I trusted my instinct and I was right. I've never heard anyone say, I trust my instinct and I was wrong. And if it's true, that's very rare. And I think, and then also to Zenka, you were talking about when we talk about our body sensing something before it happens. I think his name is Dr. Benston, who did some scientific experiments where he got a bunch of college kids. I think it's Benston, right? He loaded up a computer with like thousands of photos, and some of them were provocative, and they put the students to measure their their blood pressure, their heart, their brain, and they would just advance through the pictures, and their bodies, the readings would spike the picture before the provocative picture. And so we learned that we are doing precognition. We know before something's going to happen. It's just that it's about retraining ourselves, I think, to pay attention.
Yeah, and that study is beyond fascinating, because that intuition was 7 seconds before seeing the other image. And they would put galvanistic skin responses on, so even before your conscious mind knows something's going on, your deeper senses, right, like you were just talking about, like it's like much, it's not just one sense is sixth sense, there's like a million that we're going to start to tease out. I do also want to mention that let me see, because we have hidden the share button. But we are doing right now a very interesting thing with Captain Adham for our members. So he is taking people through intuition and how to turn on that thing, as Michelle is talking about. Like how do you master your intuition? You practice. Right? You go through the steps of doing it. A mechanism creating from your heart. So these are all, if anybody's watching and is saying like, hey, what is Starseed Academy? What is LightNet? We are a community of people doing impossible things together and having fun doing that. And our membership is these blue things here. And it really, it's a way for you guys to actually feel and experience this kind of stuff. And it's you can go to starseedacademy.org/join or lightnet.org/join to be a part of these 72 experiential experiences that help you get in there. You can't read about intuition. You need to really get in there and feel it. And Michelle, you're doing classes too, and we're going to get in right now to the remote viewing that you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm ready to step into that pond with you.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you just kind of take us through the beginning and what got you into it?
So, so when I was taking those psychic development classes, the teacher, just took one of the sessions and just started teaching us a quick and dirty kind of remote viewing, and then had us do a session. And some of the bullets of remote viewing, the kind of remote viewing that I talk about, because I think that there's a lot of different kinds of, like a lot of people say, oh, I remote view, but I'm not talking about the same thing as they are. So I want to kind of clarify what I'm talking about. So I think what I'm talking about is more of a scientific approach where we follow a protocol, and it's something that has to be trained to do. And we are also blind, sometimes double blind to the target, which also means that the viewers, the people that are viewers, have no clue what the target is. And that will avoid any biases or anything like that. And it keeps the sessions very clean. The people that are psychic and they're remote viewing, they're definitely doing something. They're tuning into something, but they have all the information for it. So it's not really done in a scientific way, but it's still, they're tuning in psychically and getting information. That's what both have in common, is that our purpose is to gather information, collect data. And our mission, or a lot of our mission, mine too, is to be going mainstream with remote viewing, because, and you have to do these experiments because that's what they listen to. And they also listen to money. And I think you brought up like wagering on sporting events and stocks. There is a type of remote viewing, and that protocol is meant for a binary target. So anything that's right or wrong, yes or no, up or down, over, under. So it, as you could see, it leans really, it works really well with when you're kind of predicting a future outcome. And so a lot of people do use that, and they do make money. So they've been very successful. And a lot of our experiments that we do, the foundation of it is that method. But what we're kind of testing different things, but ultimately we use this binary type of remote viewing, so that if we're going to show these papers, and we have had them published, when they read them, they'll go, okay, this looks familiar. People like what's familiar. So it's written familiar to science, how they like it. But as you know, in any of these things and all the work that you do, there's a lot of things that we can't measure that are intangible, and we don't have anything to measure them yet. And so we're doing the best we can. So using these protocols and documenting everything, everything's on paper, we're sketching things, and we follow a method. And that's kind of the difference between it. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, I like how you were saying that the methodology. Now, you have studied remote viewing from some of the top experts in the world. So it's really great because you have such a, you have this academic mind where you keep going. And so I love that. And, methodology is good because I know that in the remote viewing classes that I have taken, sometimes you witness this crazy phenomenon where one person will get it wrong, and then other people on the team will actually lock into their thought pattern around it and get it wrong too. So you're like leading everyone down the wrong road. And even if, who's to say that that person wasn't picking up on the professor too? So I like this idea of having it be like, neither the professor nor you guys practicing or even know the target, and then let's see what we get, because then you can really you can, like, am I telepathic, empathetic, or am I actually remote viewing instead of just picking up on what he's sending? Because it's happened multiple times.
Yeah, and I've worked in a group for almost 10 years, the same people. And even though we're blind, that still could be a legitimate problem, because when you get so familiar with your team, you start remote viewing what they're getting. So it's about remote viewing is about practice. It's like a martial art. And we really need to, these skills are very important for that. So it's practice, and discipline. And you have to tell yourself, don't look at so-and-so's paper, don't look at the manager's paper, just stick to your training, just like the military, right? Stick to your training. The method that I teach after remote viewing from the government was declassified in the 90s, there was a team that did something more civilian. So it was more user-friendly for regular people. And that's the method I am teaching. It's transdimensional systems. And through my experiments, I'm even evolving that to move into the future. So we're kind of doing, I'm into experimenting with lots of things. So I love doing that. And all my students are my little guinea pigs, no offense, but it's fun. As you know, you're probably experimenting with tons of things too. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're trying to get a database going of off-planet, things. But wait, what is this transdimensional what?
Yeah, it's transdimensional systems. It's the name of the remote viewing I teach. So it's a 6-week course, and so you're learning all the different phases of how to do this. And my mission in this course is to put a team together, because I get so many emails from people looking for help. So we have true crime that people call us all the time to help find missing persons. We have cold cases. We're just working with a detective on a 41-year-old cold case that he's ready to retire, and he wants to figure out what happened. So we're trying to give him his little dream. And also I have authors of books that call us. One of my clients in the LITM media side, she wrote a book on what was his first name? Wheeler from Texas, who claims that he saw a UFO crash on his land, and he claims that he buried the bodies. And so he passed away now. And so she hired us to remote view the location of these bodies. So this summer, I don't know if she's gone or she's going to go, and they're taking all sorts of metal detectors and LDR, whatever, energy,
LiDAR, yeah.
all that stuff, and they're going to go and look in the area that we were reporting that we saw some things. So it can be really used for anything to help. So I want to get a team together, and then most importantly, it could work for yourself. You can get a lot of information from yourself, especially when you're blind and you don't know what you're remote viewing. You're going to get a very truthful answer. And lastly, we have also something called med apps, and that's for people for healing and things like that. So
yeah, Tom Dongo, one of the most famous remote viewers in the world, can basically scan your body and tell you what's inside. This is so cool, Michelle, because I was just looking at this earlier. I'm like, wow, she's starting a remote viewing class in 6 days. Like, how random, because we've booked this interview out 8 months ago, but it happens to be a time where you're doing this. And I love that you're actually putting your students in real world situations to do cold cases and alien. I mean, that is desire. That is like, okay, I'm going to spend my time learning this for some effect, like some real world effect. I can't tell you how beautiful it is to see your website and the whole blue butterfly. And I want you to talk about that. I do want to look at your, so you have this hypnosis therapy, past life regression, remote viewing. And then here, I'm just going to show the audience here. Remember, this is butterflyeffectcenter.com. For those that can't see the chats that we posted it in, Butterfly Effect Center. And there's this remote viewing page too. And this is where it talks about your research, this thing happening as well on the 27th. Very cool. And you also have the LITM media and things like that. But wow, this is cool. I love that you're doing practical research. And when you get that many remote viewers together as a team, we have noticed that you can actually see the elephant together. Is there, is there the UFO buried? What's going on with the bodies? Like, this is great. This is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely, I definitely want to use this for a purpose. I feel like that's really, and, one of the things that, I was, thinking about, because all the time I don't know if you get asked this question, if you're so psychic, why aren't you a millionaire? And so I'm like, wait, I have an answer for that. So Joe McMoneagle, who's the best remote viewer in the world, he was in the military. He was one of the, I think he was 001 on the team. And I was talking to him, and he said, his kind of like a Southern sort of accent or some accent. And he's like, Michelle, you know, what it takes to be a world-class remote viewer. And I'm like, what? And he goes, you have to give up what it is to be human. And I'm like, huh? Like, what? I had to sit with that a little bit. And it occurred to me, I'm like, oh, I know what he means. Well, what I started talking about when we were talking about the brain, we were talking about the responsibility for the left brain, the subconscious, and then the unconscious. So if we divide up the brain into these three categories, you have your left brain, which is responsible for analytical thinking, for drawing conclusions, making assumptions, and it finds patterns. And so a really good example for that is if I said, oh, I'm perceiving something that's red, shiny, and round. Your left brain is going to, like a computer, it's going to put it all together, find the patterns. Oh, red, shiny, round, that must be an apple. And the right brain is all about what things feel like. It's connected to all your senses. And, what does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? But the problem is, if we rely on the left brain, then what happens is when we rely on the left brain, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, that's interesting, right? Because when we tie all these things together, like you said, we've been super fascinated recently into the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious, and how,
Yeah.
we have, our society is so one way. We are so left brain. It's not even funny. We
I know.
don't understand our senses and our right brain. I mean, it's amazing. Like, our
I just remember what I was gonna say.
Cool.
I don't know what happened. It must be, like today's my birthday, so like I aged like all in one day, and so I got like a little. Anyway, so what I was gonna say is, when in remote viewing, we're teaching everybody to describe and not name. So when we say red, shiny, and round, our brain will say it's an apple. But what if we're doing a missing person case and it's actually a red truck? So if we're describing a fruit basket, because once you start on the red, like you said, when you're looking at other people's papers psychically, and it takes you down the wrong path. If you're already holding an apple in your mind because the left brain is saying, oh, it's an apple, then you're going to start describing a fruit basket, and that's not going to be helpful. But if you just keep it to describing things and you turn off that left brain, and that's what we train you to do. I have exercises where I train you to turn down the left brain and turn up the right brain. And what's really good in reverse, people that are very much in their right brain, and they're not, like, really bad at doing their budget, you tell them, turn up your left brain, turn down your right brain. And so this works both ways. So I think, so to answer the question, why aren't we a millionaire? Why isn't remote viewing and psychic stuff all reliable? Well, because our left brain is trying to fight our right brain, and we have to learn how to balance the two. We need to learn how to play with which one we're going to engage in, and that's what takes training, and that's what I'm hopeful for, that we will evolve as humans, kind of break the ceiling and be able to master that, master where we're going to be for the, because you definitely need your left brain, but you have to be able to build a skill that can balance the two.
Yeah, it seems like maybe that's the condition, that one is actually experiencing the world and the other one is the map of that experience. Kind of what caused the Native Americans to not be able to see sailing vessels, because they didn't have a picture inside that
Right.
would match up to the information they were getting. And so they named it sky before they had a chance to actually see the boat.
Right.
So I'm wondering what causes you to think that or believe that everyone should do remote viewing?
Well, I strongly feel, and I think you guys do too, that I can sit here and talk until I'm blue in the face about it, but everybody, you have to have an experience to understand. And my personal experience is that remote viewing in particular has taught me so much about myself and my potential. And I think a lot of my students feel the same. And I think a lot of people in general in remote viewing, it's about understanding my potential as Michelle Freed and my potential as part of the human world. And we all should be rising up to break the ceiling so that we can reach our potential. And I think that our potential is through our consciousness. That's where we're going to get to where we need to be. We're like little babies. I feel like we're these little infants just learning, just learning that this is possible.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I just wanted to say happy birthday because I didn't
Yeah,
know
happy
it was your birthday. That's so
Oh,
special. That's so cool. Well, we're glad you got birthed, because all of these cool things and ways you're helping people is just so cool. I have another question, but we are about to the time where our members, we call them LightNet collaborators. We're going to be going over the platform next week for all of you collaborators and people that are curious as well. Again, if you go to our calendar, starseedacademy.org/calendar or lightnet.org/calendar, you can see what we're up to. But one of the things we're up to is really showing people the platform. And we really see our members not as members. They're co-funding all of this research and all of this stuff, but they're also participating. And we're doing a big thrust right now to go find people who've levitated, gotten out of wheelchairs, done these impossible things, to research them for the labs. So I just want to thank all the members who are on the call. I want to also thank our broadcast partners, New Realities, Portal to Ascension, and all the team here at LightNet, Coffee, Adham, and everyone. So thank you again. And my question is around the Knights of the Templar, because that's like, and then we also have some questions too from Amy. So Amy, I just wanted to let you know that you're in the Zoom room, because you're a member, and we are going to get to your thing. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the Knights of the Templar.
So I'm not sure if you know Gretchen Cornwall. She is kind of a regular guest on the Mysteries of Oak Island, and she does a ton of research on the Knights of the Templar. And I was calling her up, giving her a pitch to be one of my clients, because I also love going into the Knights of the Templar stuff. And we were talking, and I happened to mention that I also remote view. And she's like, oh, and she just like reaches, we're on a Zoom. So her hand reaches off the camera, and she takes this like statue about this big, like this big, and it looks wooden. And she goes, can you remote view this? And I go, don't tell me anything about it. Just don't, no, don't tell me anything. Okay, so I already knew too much, but I needed to manage the group. So I do need to know something. So anyway, I said, okay, I got a team of 4 people that remote viewed it. And so again, they have no clue it's the Knights of the Templar. They have no clue that it was Gretchen, nothing. I just said, hey guys, here's your target number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do your thing, follow your training. And they all turned in their sessions. And what ended up happening is they were getting a lot of information that was lining up to what this thing was. It was interesting because the thing is made of like a tree trunk. It looks like a tree with the grains in it. People were sketching that out. One person even said the words a tree trunk. Other people were talking about a group of people that were loyal to their mission. They were saying all these crazy things. And then another person was getting stuff that was specific to Sir Henry Sinclair. And there's a lot of mystery around Sir Henry Sinclair. And it turns out that Gretchen was doing some research, and she believes that this statue is Sir Henry Sinclair. And so that verified it for her, like, oh, she's going in the right direction. So we were on a Zoom like this. We just happened to have recorded the meeting, and she ended up putting that in her like a little documentary that she's making. And we've had professor, if you're into antiquities, I don't know, but we had a professor who studies antiquities who hired us also to he had a huge gap in his research, and so he hired us to help fill in this gap. So it's just limitless what we could do with it. But yeah, that's the Knights of the Templar story.
Very interesting. Very cool. We have Amy here. She's actually a participant in our channeled artwork, Starseed artwork team that we just launched our teams last week. This is the final moment, you guys. If you want to get in the Starseed channeled art team, it meets on Tuesday night. The other teams are filled. We do have a couple spots listed in Jesselyn's, which she calls intuition, but I also like to call it the Clairs, because she puts everyone through, light language, remote viewing, clairaudience, all the Clairs. You're going to see these are 8-week things on Starseed Academy, where you're with a team of only 8 people, 8 to 12 people that are deepening research in that. So Amy's one of our members of the art team this time, really getting into that theta brain state. But Amy, you had some questions in the chat for Michelle. So welcome, and go ahead.
Thank you, Michelle. Congratulations, happy birthday. Yeah, I have a question. I used to watch this show that she does what you do. She used to work with the police department, and she sometimes used to see this kind of very cruel killings, murders. So I guess my question is, what happens when you get to see all this violence and when you get to connect, especially with the emotions of the victims? How does that affect you?
Was that Pam Coronado that you're talking about?
I don't remember. The show the name was Medium.
Oh, Medium. Okay.
The was Patricia Arquette.
Okay. So, okay. So that was just okay. So that's a good question. We set in place protection before we remote view. And the only thing that I will tell people because of what you're asking to prepare them is I will tell them that this is a true crime, but I won't give them any more information. I feel like they have to have some idea that they might get some scary or creepy or whatever. So we also will kind of ask if doing this session is in my best interest. And then whatever they hear. So if it's a no, then they'll say, no, Michelle, I can't do the session. If it's a yes, they'll go ahead and then they're prepared. They'll put protection, which we do training on for the protection and stuff like that. The other thing that, it isn't for everyone. But at the end of our sessions, we also have a kind of, I don't want to call it a ritual, but part of the training is to detach from the session. So we really sever that link after, and we call back our energy. So we do have things put in place, but a lot of the people that want to do true crime is to a lot of times to help, if it's a missing person, to help the families have closure and to help the police department and detectives or whatever to just come up with the information that people need. And that seems to be a higher mission for people.
Yeah, and I think
how
probably
would you charge for that? How would you manage like the fees or the charging of like the money issues? Would you charge for that? Is that a community service or?
Right. So if it's a missing like a missing child, a missing person, I hardly ever charge. And it depends on the situation too. If I'm going through like a detective and I'm working with the detective and he has a budget, of course I want to get my viewers some money. It's not going to pay a ton, but a little mama needs a new pair of shoes money. Okay. But I think that I don't have an issue unless, like I don't have an issue if it's like a missing, I lost my ring or my jewelry or, someone came to us that they thought a family member stole some jewelry. All these other cases we for sure charge. But when it comes to true crime and missing persons, I generally don't charge.
I'm so excited, Michelle, for you to do the UFO case because I often thought like, oh, it's so tragic. These people pass over, they die, and then the story is kind of lost, and we need to use mediumship or remote viewing to actually get deeper. And it's really cool because there is a lot of places that are off limits. You know what I mean? Like, that are interesting places to apply our curiosity and apply our skills. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because butterflies are such a huge deal here at LightNet, is why did you name your company the Butterfly Effect Center? And what does that mean to some people who don't understand that? What's the deal with that?
Well, so mine was a personal story. In my life before any of this really happened, I was, in a bad place like a lot of people. I was in a situation, a lifestyle. That's for another show. I was talking to my friend and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And, a normal call you would have with people. And she said, Michelle, you're like a butterfly in a cocoon. And right now use this time to, educate yourself and prepare. Like this is a time to prepare and start growing. And then at some point, when you're ready, you're going to emerge from the cocoon and be a beautiful butterfly. And so that really helped me a lot because she said it at the right time. You know how that happens. It was at the right time. I needed to hear it. And so I feel like that's what I'm doing for other people that are in a situation is kind of saying, listen, right now, educate yourself, learn everything you can, and then just grow from it and then emerge.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I always tell the story that I couldn't believe, like when my kid was younger, I was like telling him about butterflies and when he was 2. And I was like, yeah, they're these caterpillars and then they turn into, like, it just seems like absolutely ridiculous. Like, it just seems like there's no way that this is actually happening. Julia, you have a question. Would you be able to turn on your camera and unmute? And as you guys know, the butterfly effect is this idea that everything that all of us do affects everybody and everyone in the world. So that's why this kind of stuff is so important. All this training to become more psychic and to become more ourselves and to become more intuitive, because this is evolution. This is the Aquarian age. This is where all of this esoteric knowledge and stuff gets out there. Like, this stuff has been hidden and now it's not. So I love what you're doing. I love what you're about, Michelle, because think about all the interviews that you have booked for all of your clients, all of your 25, 30 clients, and all of those bookings every week for all of them. That's a massive information stream that you've caused, that has caused that butterfly effect. Like, I heard this show had this, oh my gosh, this, that. And it opens our minds, and that's what we're here to do right now, is to think again about the possibilities that we have. So I'm really grateful to you and your work. Welcome, Julia. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Michelle, I appreciate everything you're saying and doing, especially why you're using a method that will open up the eyes of the material focused souls. And we all have this. And I want to know if you were ever familiar with Edgar Cayce's works, and that. Was that ever a part of what got you into the remote viewing?
No, that didn't get me into it. It was just things that I knew. What I love about Edgar Cayce is obviously his mission to help people and the healing and things like that, but the Akashic Records, because I feel like, in a way, like if I had to put imagery to what we're doing, it is, I use a metaphor like a computer or a library, which is how they talk about the Akashic Records. And I'm a visual person, so that kind of helps me a lot. So when we're in remote viewing, on the back of everything that I'm working with people, that's how I see it. And that's how I understand it. So I love that. And what's really cool, because you brought up Edgar Cayce, is we really could remote view something about Edgar Cayce, which would be really interesting. Like, if someone has a question about something, then, we can give it to our students and get more insights on it. It's just incredible. People all the time are like, did you ever remote view the alien bases on the moon? Or did you ever remote view Bigfoot? Or did you? And they have all these amazing questions. And the fact is that we could get information about all this. That's what's so cool. It's like there is no limit.
No limit. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about one of the things you just said. So within all this different forms of experience you've had, tell us what you know about Bigfoot.
So I was doing a practice session with my partner that we practice with, and it was on Zoom. And sometimes we monitor each other, and so this was a monitored session. And again, I cannot say enough that I had no clue what the target was. He just said, Michelle, your target number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was. It's just some random number. And I started, with my going through all my steps and moving through the phases. And I was getting the impression of a female subject. And so he was asking, he's like, and remember, our job is to describe, not name. So he's like, describe the subject. And so I kept big, just big. It's a female. And I remember thinking to myself, I wanted to change my mind and call it a male, but something, again, this is why I learned to trust my own intuition, because I was like, no, my intuition's telling me it's female. And so I stuck with it, which I'm glad I did in the end. And then the monitor says, I want you up out of your chair. I want you to blend with the subject and describe, touch your body. So I'm touching my arm, and I remember vividly going like this down my arm, but it felt like I had to go way out because it was so big, and I remember it like, gosh, this girl is really, she needs to shave her arms. I was just like, she's really hairy, and like I was imagining a basketball player, women's team, or, and as the session kept going, it was getting a little bit more clear to me that this must be Bigfoot. And so when I was done with the session, I'm like, is it Bigfoot? And he's like, yeah. So the secret question that I didn't know that I was answering was on the Patterson Gimlin footage. He wanted to know if it was real or a hoax. And so that was my question that I was answering. And for me, the fact that I didn't change my mind to male when my left brain, everything made sense for that to be a male, everything. And my body went, no, it's a woman. That right there is telling me it's not a hoax. Like, I really believe that there is Bigfoot. I believe they're interdimensional beings. And I believe that footage is real. And I even met Bob Gimlin. And I'm telling you, when you sit down for 5 minutes with him, you know he didn't hoax. He did not make a hoax. He's a real guy. So
That's really interesting. Thank you.
yeah, it was very
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And Alan too, he just kicked off his remote viewing team last week, and he's like, if you start naming, if you start getting into that wrapper that your brain wants to put on it, you're going the wrong way, essentially.
You're going to build a story around that nugget of information.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Like, the thing is, and this is what's so hard for people to understand, sometimes you're actually right when you name it. Sometimes your target is the Eiffel Tower, and it is the Eiffel Tower, and you say Eiffel Tower. But we can't rely on it. It just doesn't hit enough. And so it's better to just get into the mode, stay in your subconscious, and just describe things. And then let the people at the end take a look at your session and let them analyze it and figure it out. It's not your job.
Yeah, I just want to mention too, having worked with hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming myself, the side benefits to training one's mind in the way that you're doing for people, it really will improve their relationships. It'll improve their stress level, because they can start getting the information in before they start going internally and going, well, this is what he said, and this is what she meant. And it's like, no, just take the information that you're getting and see it for what it is. And it kind of relates to presence in the moment.
Yeah, because, when you're in, like, you're in your purpose, you're in a thing, and you're like, my intuition told me to go walk up to that person in the grocery store and ask about their hat so I could start a comment. Like, that's happened to me before, where I'm like, oh my gosh. And they didn't do the conversation. And then it was like, but my gut was like, oh, but you need to talk to that. And now it's this huge full blown project, the Dream Machine, because I didn't need to know why I had to talk to that person at first. I just needed to trust that initial instinct, and that's, if you can't even receive instincts, or you're not even giving them any credit in your life, then you're not going to have the universe is not guiding you to the people you're supposed to meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's so
yes.
fascinating. It's
Yeah.
that muscle. And once you start to, we've seen in these courses like you're doing, it's like once you start to get into that muscle and you know, like I know in Alan's class, it's like some people are better feelers. So they know, like that exercise you said, we ask like, okay, what does this feel like? You might be a feeling person or you might be a visual. So it's like getting to know your unique 6 plus senses.
Yeah. And don't even get me started with what is it called?
Synesthesia.
Yeah.
Synesthesia.
Which
Right.
I found that I had, which I had never known. Like, because I'm like, oh, it tastes, what did I say? Now I'm trying to remember. It tastes
It
green.
tastes yellow or something.
I think I said, yeah, it tastes green. I'm like, what? And so someone was like, what does that mean? It tastes green. You know, green, tastes green. Like, you're the idiot, you know? But getting back to what you said, like, we have, when a person names something, we actually have a name for that. It's an AOL, analytical overlay. And so I have turned AOL into a verb. Personally, I have changed remote viewing forever because now AOL is a verb. Because the whole idea of AOL is that you're drawing a conclusion or making an assumption. So when you're going through your life, how many times do you witness something or observe something and you are so wrong? And so you're AOLing, you're drawing a conclusion, you're making an assumption. So now that has really opened my eyes to not do that. You know, so anytime I have this tendency to just like draw a conclusion about something or assume that something's whatever, now I just take a beat and I'm like, check it out, check it out. And I think if everyone just took that beat and checked things out before they make that assumption, and that's another thing that I learned just from remote viewing, you know, so it's life lessons, really.
Yeah, so interesting. I have one final question, and we'd like to give you space after that, Michelle, to talk about anything that you want. I also want to do a teaser for our Japan trip for anyone that's listening that is looking to go to Japan. We're going to go in September, and I'm going to share. Rupert Langdon's going to be there. It's going to be a contact experience. I'm going to go over that as well. But my question to you, my final question is about hypnosis. I've been doing a program recently called Mind Flavors, and it's very powerful. It's like going into, I don't even know what it's doing. It's like, I don't know if it's like some sort of subliminal thing, but I'm fascinated with hypnosis and like really looking at our mind and how it's thinking and how it's being, because if we're up to a big game and we want to create these things in our lives, we got to get all those minds in sync. And my question is like, when you work with hypnosis, like, what is hypnosis good for? Like, what is it the best for, you know, in terms like, what kinds of things do people come to you for, or what is it actually really good for? Because I love these things that like one day you're this and then the next day you see the world differently or you're experiencing reality differently. I'm always interested in those big solutions.
Yeah, I think you answered your own question. It's about change. Hypnosis is a bridge to help you make a change in your life. If you want to change some messages that you get all over and over and they're not healthy, the idea is that in hypnosis, the behind the scenes or the underlying thing is that your mind protects you against things that, or protects you from the unfamiliar. So anything that's unfamiliar, your mind's like, whoa, it's, even if it's the healthiest thing. So people that would come to me and they want to get healthy in their life, and the subconscious is going to protect the body and say, but wait, having all this extra, you know, chubby bubby on me, is normal. This is familiar. I don't want to get rid of that. I don't want that going anywhere. And so the idea is to, have a repeating programming to kind of take over from the old programming to make that the normal, so that, and that's why, you have to keep repeating these things. So it's the idea of changing a habit that isn't doing you any favors. It's about any kind of trauma that you had in your life. And remember that trauma, we think of these really big ideas of trauma, the dramatic ones, but trauma could just be when you were a baby and your mom kind of left you in the stroller and walked behind and you thought you were abandoned because you didn't realize she was behind you. So trauma is whatever trauma is to the person. And so you start with this kind of like the origin of the trauma. And that origin could either be in this life or it could be perpetuated from another life. And so what we do is we go back in time to locate that origin of the trauma, and then we make changes. We change the way you look at it. And it's the same thing. I'm doing this all the time with my kids, because, and their friends, they're all depressed. They're all anxious. It's horrible seeing what they're going through all the time. And I feel like a broken record. And I'm always saying, change the way you think about that. Change the way you see that, open up the aperture and look at it from a different perspective, because that changes everything. And really hypnosis is about doing that and then repeating doing that so that the new behavior becomes the normal. I hope I got all that out.
Yeah, I love that, Michelle. And it's like, really, what you experience in your life is the summation of your conscious and subconscious and unconscious will at a core level. And so, like I said, I really like these deeper practices that are, really quick. And, I want to show, as we close here, here's the Mind Flavors thing that I was talking about, mindflavors.com. Very interesting kind of reprogramming technology. I also want to share your site, the Butterfly Effect Center. This is where you can find Michelle and everything she's doing in teaching and supporting. Very cool. This is the season 7, like I said, is closing. We've already had our first week here. Alan's doing the off-planet remote viewing. We're really excited to be off-planet remote viewing. I mean, talk about feeling hairy bodies and different things. I mean, we get the coolest responses. That class is really interesting. And then Jesslyn's doing, as I said, rapid intuition. That's at 8 a.m. on Thursdays. It's cool to kind of start your day if you're on the West Coast early and just get that in there. Here's Coffee Rain, some of her incredible drawings. This was her ET contact experience that she had. She was in this like copper pyramid thing at a conference. And all of a sudden it was Vivian Chavot and Peter's technology, actually, now that I'm remembering it. And all of a sudden she was like, I want an ET contact experience. This ET blew in her eyes. It was the craziest thing. And she was like opening her eyes and then nothing was there. I mean, she was completely, crying and shaken up. It was like really cool. And of course, but she was so excited. And then of course, Adam is doing waking induced lucid dreaming. Now this is like, talk about programming reality, talk about using your other body to see things. This team is producing such powerful events. It's effects. It's like super amazing. I want to tell you about Japan, right? So in September, we are going to Japan. We've had a professor on our team, Erica Rowe, who's super psychic and super amazing. And she's like, let's do this. So we're going to go over, see Altair. Raquel is coming with us. Vivian Chavot and those guys, Peter, are going to be speaking. and Ruben Langdon. It's going to be, and some physicists, they're local experts. You can see some of the speakers here talking about what they're going to be covering. This is online as well. But there'll be translators, in English and Japanese. So it's cool for everyone. And again, here's our upcoming schedule. So we're going to do some, if you don't know what the LightNet platform is and what it can do, we're going to be talking about the contact, purpose, and the addiction lab, and kind of showing you guys around. If you're interested, you can check that out. We have a masterclass with Adora Winquist. Amazing 5 core patterns to fulfill your sacred mission. She uses a lot of aromatherapy. She's a dynamite human. This is for members. This is a masterclass. And once again, we also have Susan doing animal communication this month. This is really cool for all of you that want to attune your psychic abilities. Animal communication is super fascinating. And Susan is one of the most psychic people we've ever met. So she will walk you through how to do that. We're excited to have Kimora Jones as well next month. That's going to be doing, talking about her art and everything. And of course, we do the spoon bending every month. So Michelle, thanks so much for joining us on your birthday. We leave you the final word to tell everyone how they can find you, and also any final thoughts that you wanted to share with us. But thank you so much for everything you're doing in the world.
Oh, thank you for having me. And also, kudos to all the things you're doing. I love how you name everything. I love the cute, they're so catchy. So I love that you're doing that, and, happy to help in any way. So if people are interested in taking my class, it starts a week from today, or Saturday, the 27th, which is 12 o'clock Central Time. And it's 6 classes, and it's a lot of fun. And I would love you to take my class. So it's butterflyeffectcenter.com, and you can check out any information. And if you have any questions, or if you need to kind of split up a payment, I try to keep my it low, because it could be very expensive. I know a lot of other people are charging in the thousands. I'm nothing near that, because I really I want everyone to take it. I want you to take the class. Again, I'm building a team. I need passionate people that want to help in these different projects that we have. And that's it I can think of. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. Your class sounds amazing. Not only because you sound super thorough with what you're like, really, you're condensing all of the best trainings of the whole world in 6 weeks for people, so that you're going to get a very solid training of what Michelle thinks is the most important. But to be part of a remote viewing team, I mean, that is priceless. That is so fun. It's kind of like the healing teams, Lynn McTaggart Power of 8 teams. Those are powerful too, because these people, you get together and you bond with people, and then you do miracles, and what could be more fun than that, so it sounds amazing. Thanks for coming on today. Thanks for all the help that you provide LightNet, getting us placed on interview shows and helping us book our show Unlimited. We couldn't do it without you. So we really want to.
My pleasure. I really support the work that you're doing. It's going to help so many people, and really just want to get the word out about it. So, and it was really great to talk to all. Thank you for the questions. And also you can fill out the contact form on my website if you have other questions. I would love to hear from you.
Great. Cool. Michelle, have an amazing rest of your birthday celebration.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Love you. Okay.